Thursday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Back live, Matt. We're recording this on video. Yeah.
You know, if
Woo!
you're watching this live
Business
right
man.
now, which you're not, but if you were, you would see Damien looks like a clean-cut version of. I think Damien turned into an iBanker.
Yeah, I got restless. Shaved my beard. I've also put on 7 pounds in about 7 weeks. So it's I call it self-improvement.
You and everybody else. What do we got today? Today's big pile of
It's a
steamy nuggets.
Which is ironic because one of the stories is about out of Mexico is about the amount of tomato. Oh, you already started the music?
Well, I just like to give you some background music.
Forget. Let's just go.
We got a lot to cover. It's a lot of nuggets today.
Let's do it. Woo! Business pants. Biz nuggets. Ready?
I'm ready. Here, let's jack the music. Feel it in your bones and rock and roll.
As normal, we always start with big data. There's always so much fun in big data. Facebook, always the champion. Facebook apps now used monthly by more than 3 billion people.
All right, we cracked the 3 billion. All right. More than China.
Facebook will allow users in the United States and Canada to transfer photos and videos to a rival tech platform for the first time, a step that could assuage antitrust concerns by giving users an option to easily leave the company's services. All right, that's enough for me, Matt. Call off the dogs. Facebook is good.
Facebook users surpassed the number of people living in China, and yet we're still worried about TikTok and China and China.
Amazon.
China.
Amazon is Wall Street's biggest winner from coronavirus. The company's market cap has ballooned by over $90 billion. Several of Amazon.com's foreign websites have been added to the U.S. trade regulator's notorious markets report on marketplaces known for counterfeiting and piracy concerns.
Nice.
Of course, Amazon said it strongly disagreed with the report, describing it as a purely political act, an example of Donald Trump using the U.S. government to advance a personal vendetta against Amazon. So Facebook yells China and Amazon yells Trump.
All right, no one's culpable for anything. I love it.
Finally, Amazon has bought cameras to take temperatures of workers during the coronavirus pandemic from a firm the United States blacklisted over allegations it helped China detain and monitor the Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities. So who does Amazon blame for this, Matt? Is there a Chinese Trump?
Can we blame the Uyghurs?
Sure, let's just blame somebody. Off to Google. Sundar Pichai, the new CEO of Alphabet, made about $281 million last year.
Can we call him a fake public CEO, though? Because it's like, what's the point?
Let me ask you this, Matt. $281 million. Is Alphabet a small country? What is Alphabet?
I think they qualify for the payment protection program, actually.
Next, Twitter. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey said, misleading information is like the challenge of our industry right now.
Right now, yeah. Hasn't been before.
He also said, anything is possible, especially an edit button. So that edit button should clear up all that misinformation, right?
That's been the problem. No one edits themselves, and therefore misinformation spreads.
Yeah.
Fox News, it just hasn't had editors ever.
Right, needs editors.
That's the problem. Makes so much sense now.
Lastly, Apple and Google have revised their ambitious automatic contact tracing proposal as representatives from each company are now pledging to disable the service after the coronavirus outbreak has been sufficiently contained. They are promising, Matt, that they'll get rid of it.
You ever see that scene in Batman? Like, which one? I don't remember which one it is with Christian Bale, where he's got like the sonar thing, and he's like, "I promise I'll unplug it when this is all done."
Yeah, that's it. I haven't, but that's the equivalent.
Good.
All right. Since we're already a little dystopic, let's jump over to dystopia.
Let's do it.
Cars could
Oh,
go
that's it. Just stop the story right there.
Cars could go completely driverless very soon, says CEO of Chinese autonomous driving tech startup. You know what else could happen very soon? Me believing you that cars could go completely driverless very soon.
Well, just think about it. If we're petrified of coronavirus, what's better than getting in a car with no one in it except for you and your slobbery self?
Look, I agree with that.
Except for all the other people who also got in that car right before you.
Utah, the state of Utah. Utah's governor announced the beta release of an app called Healthy Together that will help the state trace the contacts of those infected with COVID-19 as part of a strategy called Test and Trace. Unfortunately, the app's methodology goes beyond what both tech companies and civil rights groups think is necessary. The government of Utah partnered with social network company 20. Okay.
Wait, that's a company?
Yeah, they're partnering with a social network company called 20. So both Utah and 20 will have access to users' personal information. But don't worry, Matt. According to Utah, public health officials and a limited number of development employees with 20 will have access to your name, phone number, and location data for COVID-19 tracing purposes only.
Oh.
So don't worry, Matt.
They're going to unplug it when this is all done. Just relax.
All right, so Matt, which is worse, Zuck or Utah? That's the question. Okay? Unfortunately, it might be Zuck when you hear this next story.
That's not unfortunate. That's definite.
Yeah. The CEO of the artificial intelligence company Banjo, which has been building a mass surveillance system under a state contract in Utah, helped a Ku Klux Klan leader in the shooting of a synagogue when he was a teenager.
Wait, that needs a lot more context. What just happened?
CEO Damian Patton served in the U.S. Navy and worked as a NASCAR mechanic before he co-founded Banjo, which has raised almost $220 million from venture capital firms, including $100 million from SoftBank. First of all, why Damian? Why does it have to be Damian?
Yeah, it's too bad.
Second of all, I can finally create a game called What Does the U.S. Navy, NASCAR, and SoftBank Have in Common? I don't know, Matt. This is just the news out of Utah. This is what's going on.
Is it much worse than what was that AI company? The one with the 20-year-old founder
Rich people are using to like scan their dates.
Yeah.
At parties.
Is it worse than that?
Yeah, it seems worse to me. Not a good look for a CEO.
I don't know. It's all autocracy at this point.
Finally, the UK's largest betting and gaming firms will voluntarily remove all television and radio gaming advertising during the lockdown period. In a statement, the Betting and Gaming Council CEO said, "This move further underlines our commitment to safer betting and gaming, with many people cut off and feeling anxious." But I don't get it, Matt. Haven't people already been feeling cut off and anxious for decades? What is this?
Has anybody read a Facebook feed before?
I mean, really, I don't get this. So what are they admitting exactly? That their company's ruining people? There is a really weird implied, we are terrible for you, and now that you feel terrible, we should not advertise to you. But pat us on the back because we're going to not advertise for 6 weeks.
But we want the upside of having said that.
All right, let's go inside the pants. Let's talk about our own industry. Believe it or not, Matt, there's a lot of good news today. A lot of good news.
Really?
Yeah. First, more than 50% of investors have backed motions on Thursday at Australia's Woodside Petroleum to commit to hard targets to reduce its own greenhouse gas emissions and its vastly greater indirect emissions, and also to link executive pay to achieving bold new targets. So shareholders are winning there. They're winning.
What did they set a year? Because I'm hoping it's 2050 by the time we're already underwater.
Global emissions will fall by 2.5 billion metric tons in 2020, the largest fall in history. More good news. The coronavirus lockdown will cause the biggest drop in energy demand in history, with only renewables managing to increase output through the crisis.
Good news.
Yep. Coronavirus lockdown has dramatically improved air quality in London.
Woo!
The Shell CEO says the pandemic may change the oil business forever.
Woo!
Britain has hit a new record for coal-free electricity generation, 18 days.
Yeah, baby.
Italy is doing something every country should, making climate change education mandatory in schools.
What?
The first country in the world.
Winning.
And finally, some important voices are listening to the Business Roundtable.
Is that a good thing?
Calling for a fundamental shift away from the shareholder primacy model and towards a more stakeholder-oriented approach to corporate governance. That's what the Business Roundtable wants. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have put forth proposals that would allow the employees of large corporations to elect up to 45% of all directors.
Whoa.
So, congratulations, Business Roundtable.
All right, nicely done. Can we take is that it for the good news?
Yes.
Let's take a quick break and let's dance that one out. I want to dance some good news out. Yeah. Good news. Yeah. All right, back to you. Now crush my soul.
Back to the bad news. Bad news. Coronavirus halts climate research and raises fears of long-term hit to science budgets. That seems like bad news.
That does seem bad.
For new dangerous film to be taken down. You heard about this?
No, I did not.
I guess, Michael Moore has a new film out about.
Oh, I did see something about it. Yeah.
It takes aim at the supposed hypocrisy of the green movement, but climate scientists and environmental campaigners are saying that the film should be removed for a bunch of bullshit.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of bullshit.
Bad news. Yeah, a lot of bullshit. Finally, bad news. Satellite images reveal huge amounts of methane leaking from U.S. oil fields. Oil and gas operations in the Permian Basin are spewing more than twice the amount of methane emissions into the atmosphere than previously thought. Enough wasted energy to power 7 million households in Texas for a year.
I think at some point we do say, okay, we lit enough shit on fire. That worked for a while. Maybe we can try another model.
Let's go to First of all, Carnival. They're a new favorite in the apology tour. Australia said a deadly coronavirus outbreak in the state of Tasmania has been linked to the Ruby Princess cruise ship, which was operated by Carnival.
Yeah, they can't get enough of that.
Zoom keeps messing up. Zoom has quietly revised a blog entry to clarify that it has 300 million daily meeting participants, not 300 million daily active users, despite the fact that blog entry caused its stock price to spike. So Zoom keeps messing up.
Nice.
All right, finally, here's Here's my apology. I'm apologizing for missing this great story about Boeing.
Hold on. I'm going to turn the music off for this.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear this in full.
I missed a big story about Boeing out of the New York Times during March, right about when the COVID-19 panic hit. So it's my fault.
Sounds like COVID cloud cover for you.
So here it is. And this is the story. So CEO Dave Calhoun went in the New York Times and essentially berated his predecessor in an interview with the Times.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I've already talked about this.
You remember this?
Yes.
Did we report on this?
We did I did a short piece on it I feel like.
Okay. I'll go over it again because I like it.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic story.
Of course, he immediately backtracked after he said it. He said he was embarrassed and regretful, but he said it nonetheless. He said, uh, the former CEO made bets that were too risky, including pushing jet production rates to record heights. Right. He also said that he'll never be able to judge what motivated Dennis, whether it was a stock price that was going to continue to go up and up, or whether it was just beating the other guy to the next rate increase. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He said if anybody ran over the rainbow for the pot of gold on stock, it would have been Dennis.
Nice.
He said that the array of issues that must now deal with CEO speak the weakness of our leadership at the time, right?
Yep.
So he basically just threw them all under the bus.
But did he though?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is the crazy thing: is that he basically opened up Boeing to potentially huge lawsuits for validating some of the most damaging allegations against Boeing, basically saying that Dennis was shit, right? Even though, as we pointed out before, that it was Calhoun who was responsible for essentially appointing Dennis in the first place.
That's the grand irony here is he's basically saying, like, he didn't understand Dennis's incentives. He didn't, Dennis like tried to do things too quickly and push the pedal to the metal, and Dennis was a total fuck up. Memo to Dave Calhoun. You were on the nominating committee that hired Dennis Muhlenberg.
Yeah, you've been on the board since 2009.
Then,
okay, yeah.
Then you were the chair of the board while Dennis was the CEO. At what point do you say Dennis sucked is a 1-to-1 correlation with I suck?
Here's what this is my favorite part. Actually, they're all my favorite parts. When asked about his own and the board's role in overseeing Dennis's shitty decision making, this is what Calhoun said. If we were complacent in any way, maybe not, I don't know. We supported a CEO who was willing and whose history would suggest that he might be really good at taking a few more risks. I mean, this guy's an idiot. I mean, this is the guy that they're supporting to turn this company around. Okay. Anyway, I'm done.
Music on, baby.
Yeah, music on. Actually, I have a few more long stories, so maybe keep the music low. Up next, this is the panic tunity of the week story.
Ooh.
FedEx. So FedEx is citing the devastating impact of COVID-19. It is asking for its rent to be cut in half.
This is
for 3 months between June 1st and August 31st, which is completely random and weird.
This is the same FedEx led by Fred Smith, right? Like who wanted to fight New York Times reporters.
So FedEx doesn't want to pay its rent, right? And it's basically saying the reason is because they're heroes, because they're they're delivering essential goods and everything, right?
Heroes. Oh.
It also said this. Due to the economic impact of COVID-19, FedEx has implemented a number of temporary measures to protect the financial stability of the company for the long-term benefit of our workforce, customers, and shareholders. While we can't go into specifics, these measures are intended to align our cost structure with current operational and business requirements.
What would be the specifics that you can't go into exactly?
While asking for money for your rent. All right. So
didn't we covered yesterday that 52% of Americans don't think they can pay their rent in May. Apparently one of those Americans is Fred Smith of FedEx.
So understandably, this request has outraged the founder of Kinko's, who is a FedEx landlord. Remember, FedEx acquired Kinko's a few years back. He said he has given rent breaks to smaller businesses that are closed, but sees no reason why FedEx should get a break. They are taking advantage of the situation. I don't understand it.
Oh.
So he's saying piss off, FedEx.
There's a lot of tiny violins playing for FedEx and Kinko's right now.
FedEx. No, Kinko. Well, I guess you're right. FedEx Panic-Tuning of the week. All right, let's move on to. Oh, I have a game for you, Matt.
Ooh, games need music.
This is to you. I have a bunch of stories here. Blowhard of the week.
Already, I win.
The first one is a bit long, but I had to cover this. I have to call out this dude. This is the headline from an article written by Dan Everhart, who is the CEO of Canary Oilfield Services and the managing director and founder of Everhart Capital. Okay,
That's a lot.
here's the article he wrote. He wrote, BlackRock's ESG mandates could bring on business ruin.
Oh.
This is the blowhard of the week. He says, BlackRock's insistence that companies serve a social purpose beyond creating jobs, affordable energy, and economic productivity is shockingly out of touch given the current situation. Okay? So, Dan Everhart, I know you're listening, is complaining that BlackRock is going to penalize companies that fail to meet certain requirements. And by penalize, he means vote against their directors. So really, he's bullshitting. BlackRock's not penalizing anyone.
Yeah. Here's the real news of this story.
Yeah.
BlackRock has done 0 things to prove that it wants to do that thing.
Right, but Dan Everhart just wants to shit on ESG. So here are the onerous things that BlackRock wants companies to do. You ready for this, Matt? You holding on to something?
Should I?
Yeah, and this is what Dan Everhart, the CEO of Canary Oilfield Services, thinks it's going to help to ruin businesses. Ready? These are the things that BlackRock just wants to know.
All right.
They want these things. Executive pay should be adequately aligned with performance and shareholder investment returns.
What? What?
Right? Shareholders. Oh, no, sorry. Companies should be disclosing their environmental risks.
This is terrible.
Companies should be naming a non-executive independent director who is accessible to shareholders.
I need to find a table to flip over.
And finally, companies should articulate publicly how sustainability risks and opportunities are integrated into business strategy.
A company has to talk about its risks? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
So there you go, blowhard Dan Everhart. You're right. ESG mandates will bring on business ruin. Okay, that's your first blowhard.
I like that that's just my first blowhard to choose from.
Dan Everhart, king idiot who lives in Texas. All right, next blowhard. Vice President Mike Pence.
Oh, I mean, don't we have a winner already?
So this is the man who, for all of you who are not in the United States, he leads the White House's coronavirus task force.
Let's say leads is a loose word, though.
He toured the Mayo Clinic without a mask, despite the medical facility requiring all visitors to wear masks to avoid potentially spreading the coronavirus.
Stupid is as stupid does. Isn't this evolution at work?
That's blowhard number 2. Blowhard number 3, Congressman Kevin Brady told CNBC that higher taxes and more regulation should not be put in place in response to the global pandemic. I don't think you punish business in order to help that blue-collar worker.
Oh. No, actually, you should kick the blue-collar worker and take their money while they're down. Isn't that I think that's the saying.
That's blowhard number 3, Kevin Brady. Blowhard number 4, John McAfee, who is the founder and CEO of McAfee, the antivirus company. He's suggesting this, Matt. U.S. hospitals are purposefully overstating deaths caused by COVID-19 to get higher pay incentives from the government. And you know who supports his theory? Elon Musk. All right, so that's blowhard number 4.
And 5.
John McAfee. 5, okay. More on Elon Musk later, but that's blowhards 4 and 5. And finally, blowhard number 6, our favorite, big baby Trump, big baby diaper wearing Donald Trump. I have to cover this story. He was suggesting that researchers try using disinfectants.
Oh. Why hadn't they thought of disinfectant?
To cure COVID-19 patients, he said, quote, "Is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?" He said it would be interesting to check that. So
check that out.
This caused two major corporations to respond to Blowhard number 6. Reckitt Benckiser, the maker of Lysol, said, "Under no circumstances should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body." And Clorox, makers of bleach, said, "Bleach and other disinfectants are not suitable for consumption or injection under any circumstances." So there you go, Matt. There's our 6 blowhards. Who was our blowhard of the week?
I mean, it's obviously Kev Dog at the top. Kev Everhart.
Dan Everhart.
Dan Everhart. Aww.
Blaming ESG mandates on causing business.
All of them are within scope, right? So,
but there's a global pandemic causing a massive economic downturn, but this guy is blaming ESG mandates. It's a good amount of blowhardy there. All right, let's move on to deep fake meat.
Is there another kind?
Okay, first of all, Mexican farmers are giving away tomatoes as demand is being squashed by coronavirus. Demand for tomatoes from Mexico has dropped by as much as 40%.
Tomatoes are delicious.
From growers that supply businesses ranging from hotels to fast food chains. So what the hell is going on in American hotels, Matt? Are we just bathing in ketchup?
Oh, so good.
40%? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Look, your salads don't come without tomatoes.
Second, this is a great headline from Deepfake Meat. This is a nice headline. Aborted, chickens gassed as pandemic slams meat sector.
Makes it sound like a holocaust.
Yeah, it's chilling. And finally, Discover Card CEO details shocking drop in consumer spending with travel category down 99%.
I'm waiting to figure out the part that's bad about that. We're traveling less and saving more money.
So all of you,
except for the
people,
30 million unemployed.
All of you people trying to think of the next big thing. This is the next big thing. Think about selling things to people who travel to hotels and need a lot of ketchup.
Do that while you're injecting Clorox into yourself.
Finally, in a big bag of biz nuggets, we go to our CEO's rule category, Matt. And I got another game for you. It's called Who You Got, Musk or Zuck? Musk versus Zuck. This is like UNLV versus Duke. I mean, this is like a big here. All right.
Did they actually face off here?
Here we go.
No, let's hear it.
Well, yeah, they're facing off. Elon Musk tweets criticism of coronavirus lockdown. He quotes in all caps, "Free America now."
He's like the William Wallace of coronavirus.
So he put that out to 33 million of his Twitter followers. He has also said that current stay-at-home orders are fascist, right? Mm-hmm. He said that in an analyst call. Let's not forget that this is the same guy that also thinks that officials in the Bay Area are forcibly imprisoning people in their homes. Yep, this is a CEO, Elon Musk. He also said back in March that the U.S. would see probably close to 0 new cases by the end of April.
He's been right on all accounts so far.
Finally, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg warned that reopening public spaces too soon guarantees continued outbreaks and longer economic outcomes. So who do you got, Matt? Musk versus Zuck?
Well, here's the thing. Zuckerberg is much more clever and insidious because when he says we shouldn't reopen public spaces, it's because we're spending all of our time on social media.
Interesting. I like it.
So there's a vested interest in everything staying shut. And Elon Musk wants everyone to drive his cars around. So
yeah, it's a brilliant insight here.
So
who you got?
It's kind of a tie right now, isn't it?
Okay. All right.
It's hard
Sure,
to
let's go outside.
choose. Although right now, I do have to say that of Musk's 33 million followers, aren't 30 million of them just algo trading platforms like hedge funds and people shorting his stock? Like, it's not real people following that guy, is it?
The funny thing is that Zuck gets in trouble for smoking weed, but all this shit nobody cares about.
You know, Musk got in trouble for smoking weed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Musk smokes weed and the stock price craters, but he does, the stock price is actually going up. So go figure. That's all I got, Matt.
I love it.
Biz Nuggets.
That was-
Last day of April.
Last day of April. That was a massive pile of biz nuggets. I am Matt Moscardi. That is Damian Rallis. We are Free Float Media. If you like what you hear, don't just subscribe and share and those things, because I know you actually won't do those things anyway. Like, we've had 46 ratings for 4 months. So clearly you people are just not
Why
actually.
why is that?
Because no one pays attention. And no one's listening
Come on.
or pays attention.
Well-
Instead, go to patreon.com/freefloatmedia and buy us a latte, because I'm thirsty. There are no lattes here anymore. And we'll be back maybe tomorrow with a patron feed. We've got some proxy rants. I've got a Matt Makes.
Got an AT&T rant.
We got some
Oil
things to
inside.
discuss, and we got an amazing question/point from one of our patrons on Damian's last proxy rant about DraftKings. So we got stuff going on in a feed for patrons only, and for the cost of a latte, you can get it. Otherwise, thanks to our production team here. Our production team is Damian and Matt. Thanks to us.
Well, we might have some. We might have some others helping us soon.
We do have some people, and
beautiful interns.
there's some wonderful, intelligent, way overqualified volunteers going to help us out with this show. So we'll be back at you soon.
They must be crazy.
They are crazy, I'm sure. Thanks, Damien. I'll talk to you. Well, I'll talk to you
See
like
you,
5 times today, but I'll talk to you later.
Sure. Later.